Good morning, good morning, good morning. This is Dr. Shirlene Reeves with the Heart-Based Business Show, and we're going to have a lot of really good fun today. Wait till you hear what we're going to do. And I hope that all of you have been at home really working on your business because we've sure had a lot of time to do that. I know I have. I've written a whole book, in fact, possibly a series of 3 while I've been at home. I don't even know. There's 72 chapters. What does that mean? And the more productive we are, the better off we're going to be when we get to go outside and meet in groups again. Or you could even work from home with what you're doing. And we're going to talk about that today with the guests that I have on. And we're going to provide the inside secrets for growing and expanding your online presence. And you know, I love to talk about that because I also teach how to have video niches and keep putting your videos out so that you can have a global reach and clients all over the world, just like I do. So what we're going to talk about today is the wild woman's approach, which will be really fun, to heart-centered sales funnel. And we're going to have this marvelous guest who travels all over the world and has a tremendous amount of exposure because she does what she's going to teach you today. So just hang on here and let's get started. And then I'm going to bring her on. Technology. Okay, so thank you for hanging in there. And now we're going to get started because I'm going to introduce you to Molly Mandelberg. And let me tell you a little bit about her. She is the founder of Wild Hearts Raise Up and creator of Your Money Machine, 2 really awesome titles. And the Wild Woman's approach to a heart-centered sales funnel is very important because, you know, I talk about selling from the heart all the time. In fact, that's what my book is all about. So Molly and I are really congruent with our message. So, but I love that she is a tech savvy strategist and I am not, which is why I really wanted to have her on the show. And she works with coaches and healers and even emerging thought leaders who aren't at that point yet. She knows how to extend your outreach globally all around the world, and she does it herself. And I tell all of you all the time, never hire a coach that isn't doing what you want to do. That doesn't mean they were there long ago and they're doing it now and teaching you how to do it. That means they're in the mix right now because you yourself know how quick technology moves. And if the coach you choose isn't where you want to be, you're never going to get there. You can't possibly. And they can have an old system, but they don't know the pitfalls of today's market. And that's what Molly knows. That's what I really, really love about her. And best thing is she can help you write your landing page and your web page. She's really good about this. So I don't want to wait any longer. I want to get her on here. If you have a question, please feel free to ask it. I'll be monitoring and I'll ask it for you. And really think about how you can take your business to the next step working with Molly Mandelberg. Hi, Molly. Welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're with me.
Hi, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and you know, I love being around you because you have such a vast knowledge in building funnels and how to get responses. So why don't you start by giving us tips on why we need a funnel in the first place and what it can do for us?
Yeah. So I think a lot of people hear the term sales funnel and they think, oh, that's not for me. That sounds hard. I don't like technology. I don't want to do that. A funnel is really just about building the connection that you have with your people. So it's about recognizing that with each individual that comes into your circle of influence, you're building a relationship. And the more that you put effort into connecting with that person, using language that they resonate with, and building content that they can receive and value that they can actually understand and learn from, the more that you're going to build that know, like, and trust factor. And down the road, when the right invitation shows up, they'll be ready to say yes and become a client or a customer. So the funnel is really about what can we broadcast, for example, a YouTube channel like this, or a podcast, or social media content that's relevant. And how does that broadcast bring that person in some way, whether to your email list or in some way into your workshop or to a closer touch with you? And then how do you nurture that connection and make invitations to those people so that you're building that relationship over time and then inviting them to take the next step, whether that's buying a low-cost course or joining you for a live event or even buying one of your higher end packages or programs. So the sales funnel is actually really simple. It's just about building that relationship over time and knowing that many people will show up for the free stuff, less people will show up for the paid stuff, and even fewer might show up for that high touch, high end content or contribution from you. But we just have to put the pieces of the puzzle in place so that people can have that relationship. And my intention is to help people do that as automatically with as much automation as possible. So you don't feel like you're doing a bunch of work to build those relationships, but the people receiving it still feel like it's very personal and designed for them and speaks directly to their desires.
I know what you mean, because people think that you're everywhere when you're on video and when you're promoting funnels out there.
Yeah.
And I think it really has to do with your messaging. So speak to us a little bit about the messaging. I mean, how do we make this work? Because I'll be honest, I've had funnels in the past that didn't work, period. Didn't
me
work.
too. Yeah.
And you try it and you test it, because they always say test it, right? But it doesn't work. So why do you think that happens?
I think there's two main reasons that a funnel doesn't work. One is that we're trying to water down our messaging to reach everyone instead of getting super specific on who we want to serve. And by getting really specific, it's actually easier for that person on the other end of the line to see themselves in what you're saying, for them to see their passion, their desire, their struggle, and to recognize that you're a person who can help them specifically. So I made this mistake a lot when I started out my business many years ago. I was a hypnotherapist, and hypnotherapy, if you've tried it ever or heard of it, it can help you pretty much change anything for the better. It's about reprogramming your mind, and you can use it for anything from, smoking cessation to making more money. Like, there is such a broad spectrum of what hypnotherapy can help you do. And so I was like, I can help anyone do anything with these tools. And that is just not specific enough for one person to say, hey, I have this challenge. Can you help me with that? Whereas if I'm going out and saying, I help people remove their inner blocks to making the money that they know they could be making in their career or in their business, that would be a really more specific audience who says, that's exactly what I've been looking for, and they can show up. So being really specific is part of it. And the other part, I think, that sticks us when we're trying to launch something is that we make the program or product or offering that we're inviting people to sound hard, or we make it about what people need and not what they desire. So what people desire, they actively will pay for, and what people need, they don't necessarily want to do. So we have to pay attention to the want versus need spectrum. And if we name something in a way, like title it or write the copy about it in a way that people know that they're going to get that desire met, we can still deliver what we know they need to get there, but we don't lead with the conversation about how much work it's going to be. One of my mentors, who talks about this as well, mentions it like hydrocolon therapy. You choose to take or receive hydrocolon therapy because of the results that it gets you. If they were only selling that modality from the process from what you need to do to get the health that you desire, no one would do it. But because people are engaged in the results that you get, that results oriented, that desire being met of, I want to have better digestion, or I want to have a better immune system or better metabolism. That's the thing that people are showing up for. So it's about framing things in a desire-based format, in a results language, versus knowing what they need and telling them the hard work that you're going to do with them to get there.
Yeah, and I call it the benefits. What are the benefits they're going to receive when they work with you? And that's one of the things I was talking about, is the benefit they're going to receive with you is that you'll build the funnel. You already are in the process and you do it for yourself. So you're the perfect coach for that kind of thing.
Yeah.
For anybody who wants to have more clients. And a lot of times with a funnel, they can even charge more money, can't they? Because they take fewer clients, and then
the more front end content you have set up, and the more lower touch offerings that you have available, the more your one-on-one time is actually worth, because you've leveraged your time to be the highest tier offering that you have. So yeah, the more that you set up the funnel and put the pieces in place, it sort of makes your time more valuable. Absolutely. And that is definitely what I help people set up.
And that is a great segue into my next question. So what should a funnel look like? Because the first guy I worked with, he did a funnel, so to speak, but it had missing pieces. So give us an example for what a good, real positive looking funnel that gets results might look like.
The main thing to recognize is that people are going to join your list because you give them something, not necessarily come and be on my newsletter. If you've already got someone who loves you and who wants to follow you, they might just join your newsletter. But most of the time, people are going to engage with you and choose to be on your list because you offer them something juicy and engaging and something that they actually want to know. And so having that front end content that leads to your list. So if you are running a YouTube channel like this, or for example, I have a podcast, make sure that you're inviting people to the next step. Is that a free gift? Is that a video training series that's exclusively not visible to the public on YouTube? Is that a blueprint or a grocery list or some fancy PDF or slide deck, or my quiz is one of my favorite opt-ins? Having the piece that actually brings them over to your list is the step that most people miss. I'm going to do this workshop and then invite them to a program. Well, okay, but are they on your list? Because if they don't join your program at that workshop, you still should be able to build this relationship with them. But if you haven't got them onto your email list, you don't have the opportunity to keep nurturing your connection with that person. And you've sort of missed that whole boat. What I've noticed is most of the time, people are on my email list for between 3 and 6 months before they actually buy a program or a course or join me for a consultation on the phone. And that's because it takes that long for me to build the relationship with my people. If we don't get people onto the email list, then we don't have the chance to build that relationship over time that we could be having. So that's the biggest thing I see people missing. The other thing is to pay attention to the fact that everything you deliver should have a next step. So I'm not going to tell you there's one right way to build a funnel. There's 1,000 ways to build a funnel, and it all depends on you and your business and your chosen modality of how you want to express yourself, whether that's written or video or audio, or what kind of content you want to put together and who it's for. But the one thing is to make sure that people are getting on your list so you have the opportunity to nurture them, and then always pay attention to what the next step is. So not every email needs to invite them to get on the phone with you, but everything that they choose to dive into, every piece of content that you create should either guide them to your list or guide them to the next step down the journey on your funnel to the next tier of offerings that you have.
Molly, that's a very important point you just made, because I see people all the time who put videos out and they never tell anybody what to do after that. It's like, oh, that was nice. Well, now what? How do I have more of that person? What do I do to connect with them? Like, I have the Authors and Speakers Visibility Playground and the Facebook group. So I'm always saying, join our Facebook group, become a part of it so that you can get on a show, right? I mean, that's what it's all about. So if you leave that piece out, then they're left hanging like, well, what now? I've never seen a commercial on TV that didn't give you an action phrase so that you could take action and do what they're suggesting. So I love that you said that.
Yeah.
And you also brought up another thing about the emails. I've got a lot of different business owners that'll say to me, well, what do you think about this email list thing? Because people don't open them. What do I do? I mean, I can't get people to open them. What are your thoughts about that? Or they say they never got them and they went into spam.
Yeah, there is an attrition rate. I think that's the right word, where there is always going to be a percentage of your list that's not engaged. And that is very normal. I think the industry standard for thought leaders like us is generally between 10 and 20%. I think usually it's around 15 or 17% is the average open rate, which means if you have 1,000 people on your list, maybe 150 will open the email that you send. And while that sounds like dismal, it's normal. So don't feel like it's you. There's nothing wrong with you. And that means that having a bigger list is going to mean, in general, more people are actually opening it in that percentage of people. I also just want to say that it's okay to have a small list. I started recognizing the power of my list and how it could save the day in a way when I was still around 500 or 600 people on my list. And my van broke down and I needed to bring in some money to get back on the road. And I sent out an email and had 4 people buy a half VIP day, and that saved the day for me. So you don't have to have a large list for it to be a great asset for your business. And the bigger your list is, the easier it is to launch any program or any offering. So don't be too afraid of the fact that your open rates aren't great. The ways to make it better, for one thing, you could ask them in every email to make sure that they're in your that you're not in the promo folder. So you could ask them, just drag me into your normal folder so you don't miss the next thing from me. And letting them know there's going to be something good in that next email from you is incentive.
Mm-hmm.
Asking them to reply to an email from you, or making something really irresistible to click. When someone clicks on a link in an email, or when they reply to an email, in general, it's telling them that this probably shouldn't be in promo. So having them actively drag you over back to the inbox or reply or click on a link is in general going to help your open rates for that person. So asking everyone to do that is going to help. Did that sort of answer the question?
Yeah, that was very helpful. Thank you for that. So are you saying, I know an Apple, I have Apple and it's called junk. So is promo like junk?
That's the Gmail version of junk. Yeah.
Okay.
In Gmail, you've got, inbox, spam, or social, and promo.
Okay. And promo. So how does it get into promo? Does it go there by itself? Is that like spam?
That's a great question. I think sometimes, I'm trying to figure that out as well, because of course I would like to have greater open rates. I think there's things to do with your actual email address. So from the internal level of where your hosting company gave you that domain specific email address, there's stuff to do on the back end of there, which I don't know as much about. I've had someone on my team doing that part for me. But also there's just algorithms that say, I think if enough people are receiving the same email throughout the Gmail world, that maybe it starts getting marked as promo. But there's also a lot of languaging. So things like make more money or increase income, if you have phrases like that in your emails, they're going to go to promo. And there's, I'm sure, websites that will tell you just all the things. Most good autoresponders will have a spam check as part of the stages you click through. I know in ActiveCampaign, the last thing before you click send for an email, it gives you a spam check and it will notify you if you have a phrase in there that is likely to put you in the promo folder.
Cool. Okay. Good to know about. Thank you, Molly. That was awesome. Spam check. That's a good thing to ask. If you don't know if you have it or not, ask the company that you're working with.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things before the show that we talked about was nurturing in your funnel. So what does nurturing mean when you're talking about social media?
Yeah. So nurturing is a way of just building that connection. So it's not necessarily making a call to action. I wouldn't say social media content it is nurturing in a way, especially if you're building a Facebook group and you're engaging that audience. If you're not actively inviting them to take a next step or click here or opt in here or buy this, then it's nurture content. You're delivering a concept, you're delivering a juicy tidbit, a tip of information. That is nurturing content. So what I do when someone joins my email list, they get whatever they opted into. They get the email about the PDF, or they get the quiz results, the beautiful, slideshow about what their archetype is. And they get some invitations to do something next. Once they finish that introductory sequence, everybody drops into what I call my tip sequence, what's also known as a nurture sequence. And it's basically just a long series of emails that are all evergreen, which means they're relevant throughout time. They don't have to be checked on a regular basis. And they just get an email every week on Monday. That's something that I thought was valuable that I wanted to share with them. Sometimes it's a story from my life. Sometimes it's a business tip. Sometimes it's just something to be aware of or how to network effectively. All these different things that are related to the work that I do or related to leadership. And they get them on a regular basis. And why I do that and why they don't have calls to action is so that over time, when something happens, like my car breaks down or when it's time for me to launch my next program, I know that there's a lot of people on my list who have been in that nurture sequence for a while, receiving contributions from me without me asking for anything from them in return. So when it's time for me to launch something, they still know who I am. They know they like my messaging. They're still on my list because they're with me. They are part of the journey. They've chosen to be, an engaged follower on my list. And they're more ready to take that next step and buy that program or join me for that workshop or that call because they're warm. They've been nurtured. They've been connected. That relationship has been built. And I set those emails up. I sit down and write 4 of them, plug them into the email sequence, and I don't think about it for 2 months. So the nurturing of my list is something I think about maybe once a quarter or every few months, and it's happening on a regular basis. So every time I go to launch a program, there's already people who have been hearing from me. It's not like, hi, remember me? Here, buy this thing from me again. It's like, hey, we've been doing this for a while, and I want you to know that this thing is coming up. If it's for you, check it out.
That's awesome. So how many times should you send out a nurture email as opposed to a promotional email, so to speak?
I see it like an energetic bank account. If you're making contributions into the account between you and your people, then it's okay to make withdrawals. If you're like sending more invitations than you're sending nurture content, I would check on that and see if you could adjust that dial a little bit because you can't take money out of an empty account.
Yeah. So what would you say is a good
I generally
number?
recommend that my clients send at least 2 nurture emails a month. So every other week, 2-week wait email, 2-week wait email, and set them up for as far in advance as they can. So what I do is I have my nurture emails always go out on Mondays. And that way, if I want to promote something, I can send it on any other day of the week, as long as it's not Monday. And I know that I'm not double dipping and sending someone 2 emails in a day.
Good to know. That's a really good tip too. I appreciate that. I really appreciate that. So, do you think that there is a good time to send these out or a not so good time to send these out? What are your thoughts on that?
Time of day, you mean?
Yes, or
I
day
generally send in the morning.
general. In the
I generally
morning?
send in the morning and on weekdays. The only time I'll send an email on a weekend is if there's a cart closing and I want them to know that there's only a day left or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Monday seems to work for you then in the morning.
Yeah, I haven't really tested my nurture emails going on a different day. I've just always had them on a Monday. But I think in general, Mondays are obviously going to be a more inbox inundated day. So it might not be the most strategic day for nurture content. And I also think Friday, people's brains are in some ways leaving the office. So probably Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday are best days for emails. I'm sure somebody has more data on that.
Yeah, I'm sure they do. But if it works for you, whatever you're doing, if it works, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And I love that, I don't have somebody told me, well, I'm working with this new guy now and he's got an email list of an arm long. I'm like, oh, for me, that's an email list that's been around forever. and not as condensed as it should be so that they actually work with you. It
Right.
sounds really good, but I don't think it's, because there's a lot of people that make 6 and 7 figures that don't have an email list that long. What do you think is a good email list to start with?
I think a good email list is a warm email list. I think there is no size of email list that's going to tell you whether you're successful or not, but the fact of them being engaged or not is what will make a difference. So the more you can connect with your people, the better that's going to be.
Absolutely. And I agree with you. I think a warm email list is really, really important. And quite frankly, it doesn't impress me if they've got one an arm length long.
Yeah.
But if it impresses the person that's telling me that, I know they're probably not at the level that I want to work with, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we have very little time left. I told you this goes really, really fast.
So fast.
I know, isn't that amazing? And you've given us fabulous information. I'm so grateful that you've done this. And I know you have a little something that's fun for them. And so would you like to tell them about that? And then I'll put this up for you too.
Yeah, sure. So my favorite way to grow my list is through my thought leader quiz. It will tell you what level of thought leader you are and give you your inner arch nemesis and how to overcome them or, move through that. And it has, I think at this point, 11 or 12x'd my list in the last 16, 17 months. So it's my favorite way to grow an email list. I also teach people how to build quizzes like this. But check it out. You'll get a 16-page PDF at the end if you decide you want to opt in after the beautiful questions that are there. Mm-hmm. And you'll start to see how that nurture content system works once you go through the quiz. So fabulous. It's really fun, gamified experience. People tend to love it and learn more about themselves. So
wonderful, because we all want to know where we are before we start something new, right? And that's the perfect way to do it, is that quiz. Molly, thanks so much for being here with me today. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing you out in the field and that you have a wonderful year going forward. I know you're doing really well, and I know that people will really benefit in working with you because you know what you're doing. That's what's really important.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And thank you guys for watching. Thanks for making channels like this go crazy. It's awesome.
So everybody, I want to thank you for joining us today. And I want to ask you to please join the Authors and Speakers Visibility Playground. We're doing so much in there. And the one thing that I really love doing more than anything is the free mastermind that we're having every week on Thursdays at 10 a.m. And if you are a member of this group, you get to play for free. So come on in and you'll meet Molly in there and a number of other people. It's all very heavy hitters who belong to this group. And we all mastermind and refer to each other. And I know you'll have a great time. So don't forget to join us at the Authors and Speakers Visibility Playground. See you next week.